is it hardest? Here we go to the next verse. When is it hardest for a child to obey their parents? It's when parents provoke them to wrath, instead of they themselves submitting to the Lord and admonishing their children in His will. And so let's go to, first of all, over to Ephesians chapter 6. We'll be back here. Verse 4. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4, where Paul tells us, or the Lord tells us through Paul, "And ye fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord." So, don't provoke them to wrath. And what is that? I mean, what's the difference between provoking them to wrath? I mean, in some cases, some parents would say, well, every time I tell them to do anything they don't want to do, they're provoked to wrath. But parents are responsible for raising their children, responsible to God. As Adam was responsible to God back in those days, and he was held responsible for the failure there, not Eve. Parents are responsible for raising their children, for guiding them, and even for chastising them when necessary. For judging their actions. What really provokes children to wrath in the way that the Lord is talking about is when we judge the person. That's the thing we have to avoid. There's two things where we can really raise our children's wrath. One is when we tell them they're bad because they did a wrong thing. When they have the same sin in them that we have, we're all sinners. So how can we point down to them and say that judge them bad? If they are bad, we're bad. We're all sinners. We're all the same in that sense. That's what raises the wrath. Because as a child, when a parent was talking to me in a way that made me feel like I was totally unworthy, and they were worthy, I knew something was wrong here. Because I watched them all the time, and they weren't worthy. I wasn't worthy either, but I knew they weren't worthy. So what raises wrath is that way of dealing with your children. Instead of, honey, this is and I know, I've heard all the stories from children. Yes, my parents always told me it's going to hurt them worse than me, and they were doing it in my own interests, you know. But that is what we're supposed to be doing, is doing it in their own interests, in the way that God would lead us to do it. And that's how we're supposed to do it. And how many times I wondered, I know with me it was towards the end that I started learning a little bit how to deal with my child in a difficult situation, however it was, not talk to him like he was wrong and I was right, but definitely point out that what he did was wrong, and if there was some punishment that was going to be part of it, point it out, and then bow our heads and pray to the Lord and ask Him to help us all to be better. Because we all fail, and that's what our child is doing. We're still responsible. We can't just let them go, just like God doesn't let us go. He chastises us, we have to chastise them. But it can be done in a way that's not talking down to them, or the other way that's really tough. We can discourage them when we discipline them based on our mood, instead of based on the admonition of the Lord. Let's go to Colossians chapter 3, verse 21. Where once more it says, "Fathers, provoke not your children to anger, lest they be discouraged." And that is what that is, because mood punishment is punishment that is now between us and our children. It's this sinful character punishing that sinful character for doing something wrong. I am out of hand. And I have done that. I have been angry when I did it. Instead of myself praying to the Lord and asking Him to lead me, guide me, help me be under control, help me remember that I love my child, and help me to handle this wisely, which is how we should do it. And if a child could be wise in their young age, they would be saying, "Oh Lord, please help me deal with this punishment that's coming my way, or this scolding, or whatever it is, and take it, because after all I did do something wrong. And I love them and they love me." And that should be the overriding sermon. So, all right, let's go to verses 22 to 24. Hey, we made it through the family part, but we're still here. That's good. Okay.
No women left.
No, when we were in Mexico and I was doing a Bible study and we got really heavy into that women and men part of it and all, the women just seemed to laugh a lot. I didn't quite understand them, and I just kept saying, look, this is just the Word of God now. You know, I'm not saying anything. This is the Word of God. And they just kind of laughed a lot. I'm not too sure what that was about. But in verse 22, it says, servants, obey in all things your masters according to the flesh, not with eye service as men pleasers, but in singleness of heart, fearing God. And whatsoever you do, again, do it heartily as to the Lord and not unto men, knowing that of the Lord ye shall receive the reward of the inheritance, for ye serve the Lord Christ. So, the principle of this is, when he uses the words masters and servants, he's talking about we work for people in one way or the other, and we're, in that sense, we're servants. We serve them. We don't like that word as much, but that's what it is. We're workers, we're servants, and our masters are just the managers or the owners or the supervisors or whatever they are. You know,
Customers even.
Or the customers, that's right. So he's saying, obey, not with eye service. And I think that's really kind of interesting, because there was a time when I could, when I was not in a management position or anything, and I'd see a manager come in, and this person right here would just smile and be so nice to them, and it's just great. And then as soon as that manager left, would be just chewing them up and spitting them out as to what they really thought about them, you know. Well, that's eye service, and we can't do this with the Lord. But what I have done with places I worked is, if I just couldn't stand the circumstances or the person, then I quit. And I tried to do it in a proper way and all that, 2 weeks notice or whatever, but rather than stay there and pretend. Heartily as unto the Lord, though, even in a bad situation, it's telling us.